What mysteries did the offspring of Nazi commanders conceal when they matured? How were their existences influenced by their family's history? In this video, we will demonstrate what transpired to them and disclose some astonishing realities about the consequences of World War II. Gudrun Himmler, brought into the world on the 8th of August 1929, was the sole offspring of Heinrich Himmler. Despite the infamous chronicle associated with her father, who was one of the primary designers of the Holocaust, she remained a devoted advocate of him until her demise in 2018. Heinrich Himmler had a particular affection for his daughter, guaranteeing she was transported to his Berlin headquarters from her dwelling in Munich, where she resided with her mother. He preserved close communication with her, making daily telephone conversations when she was at home and dispatching weekly correspondence. Heinrich tenderly referred to her by her childhood designation, Poopy. She also accompanied him during certain official gatherings. She challenged the broadly acknowledged conviction that her father took his own life by biting into a concealed cyanide capsule. Instead, she maintained he was murdered. Following World War II, both she and her mother were captured by American forces and confined in a succession of camps located in Italy, France, and Germany. They were called to Nuremberg to offer testimony at the proceedings and subsequently freed in November 1946. Throughout her existence, Gudrun labored persistently to maintain her father's reputation and remembrance. She became an essential component of the Stille Hilfe, Silent Aid, a clandestine organization offering assistance to arrested, condemned, or fugitive former SS members. Her participation with the organization was a demonstration to her steadfast allegiance towards her father's inheritance. Martin Bormann Jr., the eldest offspring of Nazi Party representative Martin Bormann, has existed a life characterized by the substantial inheritance of his father's notorious identity. Born on April 14, 1930, he was only a youngster during the elevation of his father's influence and the atrocities of World War II. Developing under the shadow of his father's prominent placement in Hitler's inner circle, Bormann Jr.'s childhood was far from typical. However, the young Bormann was kept protected from the horrific reality of the Nazi regime. After the conflict, he was faced with the terrible actions attributed to his father, a comprehension that led him on a journey of regret and atonement. Separating himself from his father's philosophy, Bormann Jr. converted to Catholicism and committed his existence to the church. He even labored in the mission territories of Congo and Cameroon, endeavoring to make reparations for his father's transgressions. However, in 2011, Bormann discovered himself at the center of abuse accusations. A former student asserted that Bormann abused him when he was 12 years old in the early 1960s. There were additional accusations of extreme physical brutality against other students. At the time these accusations emerged, Bormann was struggling with dementia, rendering him either reluctant or incapable to address the charges. While these accusations never resulted in any legal proceedings, the independent Klasnik Commission, established to investigate into the abuses within the Catholic Church in Austria, granted the accuser restitution. Niklas Frank, son of notorious Nazi war criminal Hans Frank, has invested a substantial portion of his existence wrestling with his father's sinister inheritance. Born in 1939, Frank was too young to understand the atrocities committed during the Holocaust. However, his adulthood has been largely absorbed by a pursuit to comprehend and publicly condemn his father's deeds. Hans Frank, recognized as the Butcher of Poland, was Hitler's personal attorney and later functioned as Governor General of occupied Poland. Despite his father's monstrous acts, Niklas Frank has taken an exceptional route, confronting his heritage directly. He has authored several publications, including In the Shadow of the Reich, which detail his endeavors to understand his father's actions and their influence on his existence. Frank's dedication to informing others about the Holocaust and its enduring consequences on families of those involved, including perpetrators and victims, is praiseworthy. His forthright public discussions contribute a distinctive perspective to Holocaust remembrance and function as a powerful reminder of the atrocities that can emerge from unchecked hatred and prejudice. Edda Goering was the sole offspring of Hermann Goering and his second spouse, actress Emmy Sonnemann. As the daughter of one of Hitler's right-hand men, born just before the eruption of World War II, Edda's early years were primarily spent with her mother at the Karen Hall, the Goring family property. Edda's early existence was characterized by the luxury and privilege that accompanied her father's influential position in Hitler's Germany. She was frequently photographed at public occasions, a symbol of the Nazi regime's endeavor to project a representation of wholesome family existence. She was the beneficiary of numerous historic art pieces during her childhood, including a Lucas Cranach the Elder's Madonna and Child painting. As the conflict neared its conclusion, she and her mother transferred to their mountain dwelling at Obersalzberg, close to Berchtesgaden. The conclusion of the Second World War brought a reversal of fortune for the Goering family. Hermann Goering was sentenced to execution at the Nuremberg trials for war crimes. Although he avoided the gallows by taking his own life, his actions left Edda with a tainted inheritance that she invested the rest of her existence trying to reconcile. Edda Goering attempted to exist a life away from the public gaze. She rarely spoke about her father in public, but preserved that he was a good individual in private discussions. In the decades of the 1950s and 1960s, many of the valuable presents she had obtained in her youth, including the Madonna and Child artwork, became entangled in long legal conflicts, most of them which she lost in 1968. While the offspring of other notable Nazis like Gudrun Himmler and Albert Speer Jr. often publicly discussed their father's positions, Goering notably abstained from such public discourse. However, during a 1986 television interview in Sweden, she broke her quietness to express her profound affection towards both of her parents. She passed away in 2018, leaving behind an existence that was forever characterized by the deeds of her notorious father. Rolf Mengele, son of the infamous Nazi physician Joseph Mengele, has existed much of his existence in the shadow of his father's dreadful chronicle. Born on March 16th, 1944, Rolf was raised away from the horrific concentration camps where his father executed his notorious experiments. Rolf's early existence was largely concealed in mystery and misinformation. He was led to believe his father had been a war hero and only discovered the chilling truth as a young teenager. Despite the burden of his designation, Rolf made endeavors to lead a typical existence, studying law and functioning as a corporate attorney. After the conflict, Josef Mengele fled to South America. Relocating to a new continent signified that Mengele had to abandon his son, Rolf, behind. This absence from his son's existence made Rolf a person of interest, particularly for Nazi hunters who believed he maintained contact with his father. To some degree, they were correct. Mengele did compose several letters to his son, sparking Rolf's curiosity and leading him to make a journey to South America in 1977 to encounter his father. Reflecting on his journey, Rolf acknowledged that his father displayed no guilt for his horrific deeds in Auschwitz, even attempting to rationalize them. Despite despising his father and everything he represented, Rolf couldn't summon the strength to betray him. He kept silent about Mengele's South American hideout. Hence, the notorious Angel of Death escaped answering for his numerous atrocities. After their encounter, Rolf decided to modify his identity and sever connections with his past. It is speculated that he is now a family individual and a retired attorney leading a tranquil existence in Germany. Wolf Hess was the son of Rudolf Hess, a prominent figure in Nazi Germany and a member of the Nazi Party. He held the position of Deputy Führer to Adolf Hitler from 1933 until 1941, when he embarked on a solo voyage to Scotland in an endeavor to hold peace discussions with Britain. Hess was captured and subsequently put on trial in Nuremberg once the conflict concluded. Although he evaded execution, Hess was condemned to invest the rest of his days in solitary confinement at Spandau prison until he took his own life on the 17th of August 1987, aged 93. Rather than separating himself from his father's inheritance, Wolf Hess invested his existence defending him. Wolf was a devoted supporter of his father, dedicating many years in an endeavor to alter the public perception of his father. He tirelessly advocated to prove his father was not a war criminal, but rather an individual simply executing his duties in the 1930s and early 1940s, thus absolving him of any responsibility. In his teenage years, while his father was held captive following his ill-fated journey to Scotland, Wolf was a frequent visitor. His actions, however, extended far beyond these visits. During the 1950s, Wolf established the Committee to Free Rudolf Hess, accumulating several 100,000 supporters, including some notable figures in German politics. He authored numerous publications advocating for the recognition of Hess as a German hero rather than a criminal. Following Hess's demise in prison, Wolf contended that his death was the result of foul play by his British captors. Wolf, who invested his entire existence defending his father's Nazi affiliations, passed away in 2001. Albert Speer Jr., was born on July 29th, 1934 in Berlin, just days before Hitler ascended to the position of Führer. Albert Jr.'s childhood years were invested in Berchtesgaden, a village in the Alps where Hitler had a retreat. There are films from the 1930s that depict a young Albert playing on the porch of Hitler's villa under the dictator's watchful observation. Albert Speer Sr. was Hitler's primary architect and Germany's armaments minister. Speer Sr. utilized his organizational abilities to sustain the weapons manufacturing, greatly reliant on forced labor, which effectively extended the duration of the conflict. Post his conviction in the Nuremberg proceedings and a subsequent 20-year imprisonment sentence, he emerged as one of the few high-ranking Nazis who demonstrated regret for the atrocities committed by the regime. Following his father's incarceration for war crimes, the Speer family took refuge with Albert Jr.'s grandparents in Heidelberg. During this period, Albert Jr. developed a severe stutter, which he eventually managed to overcome. He initially trained as a carpenter before shifting his concentration to architecture. Albert Jr. was adamant that his career selection of architecture was not influenced by his father. In an interview with Süddeutsche Zeitung in 2010, he refrained from discussing his father, who passed away in 1981. "I have attempted my whole existence to separate myself from my father, to distance myself," he said. Albert Jr. passed away at his Frankfurt residence on September 15th. He was 83 years old. Well, that's it. We hope you enjoyed our video. Please leave a comment down below about your thoughts, and don't forget to appreciate today's video. Subscribe to the channel as an offering to the gods of the algorithm. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.